Greetings, denizens of the 41st Millennium, and welcome to the channel. I am your host, Adeptus Artorum, and today we embark on a journey into the life and saga of a warrior forged in fire, tested by war, and tempered by duty, the Space Marine Lieutenant Demetrian Titus. Now, before we descend into the tale, a brief note: this video contains spoilers for both Space Marine and Space Marine 2. If you haven't played these games, or you wish to experience them for the first time without knowing the story in advance, now is the moment to pause, bookmark this video, and return at a later date. We also want to take a moment to discuss our content schedule. We are striving to deliver videos more regularly. While life keeps us busy and we may not always be able to post consistently, our aim is to provide shorter length videos to fill content gaps, leading up to larger, in-depth dives. This is our focus, and we hope it allows you to enjoy a steady stream of Warhammer 40,000 lore, while we continue to explore the universe in detail. For those ready to dive in, prepare yourselves to witness the life of a warrior whose legend spans battles, exile, and redemption in the grim darkness of the 41st Millennium. Demetrian Titus was born on Tyranids, a verdant world in Ultramar, characterised by orderly cities, sprawling farmlands, and ceremonial halls, reflecting the chapter's values. Unlike recruits from harsh death worlds or hive cities plagued by crime and famine, Tyranids offered structure, education, and peace. Yet even here, Titus's potential became evident. As a boy, he exhibited courage beyond his years, defending weaker peers from bullies, assisting workers with industrial machinery, and showing strategic thinking in childhood games. Stories of the Emperor's Angels of Death fascinated him, and he internalised the values of duty, discipline, and courage from a young age. When the Ultramarines recruiters arrived, Titus's aptitude was undeniable. He endured grueling trials to become a Space Marine, including the implantation of gene seed organs and mental conditioning. His body was enhanced with the secondary heart, black carapace, and the catalepsian node, and numerous other organs that made him a living weapon. Each trial carried risk of death or permanent injury, yet Titus endured with steadfast resolve. During his years as a scout, he faced orc raiding parties, cultist uprisings, and warp anomalies. Alone, or in small squads, he learned survival, reconnaissance, and tactical improvisation. These formative years forged not only a warrior, but a future leader, capable of independent thought, decisive action, and unwavering courage. By the time he earned full ceramite armour, Titus had become a battle brother, tempered and ready for the fires of war. Now, before we continue, I'll take a brief moment to explain what it means to be a Space Marine Scout, or a Scout of the Adeptus Astartes, and what it takes to earn full ceramite armour. A Scout is a Space Marine in training, a battle brother who has completed the initial implantation of gene seed organs, but has not yet earned full status as a brother within his chapter. Scouts are assigned dangerous reconnaissance missions, infiltration duties, and frontline engagements to test their skills and judgment under fire. The tasks are often solitary, requiring stealth, intelligence, and extreme resilience. Earning full ceramite armour marks the completion of a Scout's trials and the transition to a fully fledged battle brother. Ceramite armour is more than just protection, it is a living symbol of their chapter's ideals and their permanent bond to the Emperor. To receive it, a Scout must prove themselves in battle, survive the most dangerous missions, and demonstrate unwavering loyalty, courage, and tactical acumen. Only then can they join the ranks of the fully armoured Space Marines, ready to wield bolter and blade in the Emperor's service. Eventually, Titus would join the second company of the Ultramarines, and upon joining the Second Company, Titus's abilities became undeniable. He combined raw combat skill with tactical brilliance, earning admiration from peers and wary attention from superiors. Though his decisive nature occasionally bent the Codex Astartes protocols, his results were undeniable. Now, I think it's important to briefly explain the Codex Astartes and why it matters, especially for a Codex-compliant chapter like the Ultramarines. The Codex Astartes is the tome of rules, essentially, doctrines and strategies written by Rabute Guilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines. It governs nearly every aspect of a Space Marine chapter, from organisational structure, deployment strategies and battlefield tactics, to the role of squads, command hierarchy and even recruitment procedures. For a Codex-compliant chapter, following these protocols is essential. It ensures efficiency, discipline and adaptability in war, allowing the chapter to operate like a perfectly tuned machine. It also maintains cohesion among the Marines, so that even in the chaos of battle, every brother knows their role, responsibilities and limits. For Titus, being part of a Codex-compliant chapter like the Ultramarines means that while he has the freedom to act decisively in the field, he must also balance his instincts with the strict doctrines of the Codex. This tension between innovation in combat and adherence to tradition defines much of his character and leadership style, and this is why I felt it important to mention. Getting back to Titus, his first major campaign involved confronting a Chaos Sorcerer who annihilated a veteran squad. Titus alone survived, exploiting the Sorcerer's magical weaknesses and leading a counter-assault that saved trapped Imperial Guardsmen. On Beta Arcturus, after the death of his commanding officer, Titus recovered the fallen captain's body and rallied the remaining forces to victory. Provisional command of the Second Company followed. Among his battle brothers, Titus was a natural leader. Among chaplains and librarians, a figure of cautious observation. His unusual resistance to warp influence inspired awe and concern alike. Now, we get to the events of the first Space Marine game, and the events that happened on the world of Graia. So I'm going to briefly now just tell you a little bit about the world Graia. So, Graia is a forge world, one of the Imperium's industrial powerhouses. It is classified under the Imperial system as a forge world, meaning its surface is dominated by massive manufactorums, refineries and factories producing weapons, vehicles and war material for the Imperium's armies. The skies are often thick with smoke, and the ground shakes with the ceaseless labour of machinery. Its cities are sprawling industrial complexes with towering structures built for production rather than beauty. Despite this, Graia's population is hardy and disciplined, consisting of servitors, tech priests, labourers and military personnel. The planet's surface is heavily fortified, not only with manufactorums, but also with Imperial Guard installations to defend against external threats. Graia's importance to the Imperium cannot be overstated. It produces arms, ammunition and vehicles crucial to sustaining Imperial war efforts across nearby sectors. Losing Graia would cripple nearby Imperial forces, allowing Xenos, Orcs and Chaos forces to exploit the strategic vacuum. In terms of classification, Graia is a Class M forge world, meaning it has extensive manufacturing capacity, fortified population centres and serves as a hub of technological and military output. Its vast manufactorums, defensive fortifications and strategic value make it a target for both Orcs and Chaos forces, as seen in the Orc War that Titus faces during the original campaign, as we will discuss. Understanding Graia gives context to the gravity of Titus's actions. He wasn't merely fighting for survival, he was defending a key linchpin of the Imperium's war machine, where failure would have had ramifications far beyond the planet itself. Now, the Forge World of Graia would become the crucible defining Titus's legend. When the Orc War of the warlord Grimskull struck, planetary defences fell quickly. Titus led a strike force, including Sergeant Sidonus and Brother Leandros, stepping into a city in flames, streets littered with rubble and civilians fleeing for their lives. Each step was a calculated risk. Orc mobs surged in relentless waves. Titus coordinated ambushes, protected civilians, and countered attacks with precision. Yet the greatest threat emerged not from the Orcs, but from the Warp. The Chaos Sorcerer Nemeroth, wielding Inquisitor Drogon's corpse as a vessel, spread corruption throughout Graia. Psychic energy warped reality, twisting flesh and machinery. Titus eventually confronted Nemeroth in the Industrial District. Bolts of psychic energy tore the air. Demonic constructs fought alongside orcs. Explosions shook factories. Titus pressed forward, relying on training, faith, and instinct. With a final, decisive strike, he slew Nemeroth, saving Graia. This victory, though absolute, was bittersweet. Sidonus was killed, Leandros accused Titus of heresy, and the Imperium stripped him of command. Graia survived, yet its saviour was exiled. At this point, it's important to understand what it means when a Space Marine is exiled, and just how serious such a punishment is. Exile is a severe measure within a chapter, reserved for actions that, while sometimes honourable, violate the strict codes of conduct, the Codex Astartes, or the Emperor's laws. When a Marine is exiled, they may be stripped of rank, honours, and chapter privileges. Often, they're sent on dangerous near-suicidal missions far from Imperial control, to war-torn worlds, remote sectors, or regions where survival is uncertain. These assignments are both punishment and a test. The exiled Marine must prove their loyalty, skill, and commitment to the Emperor, often without the support of their chapter. In some cases, exile is internal. A Marine remains within the chapter, but is sidelined from command, ceremonial duties, and strategic decision-making, while being closely monitored by chaplains, librarians, or even the Inquisition if heresy is suspected. It's crucial to recognise the weight of exiling a Space Marine. This is never a decision taken lightly. Each Marine represents decades of training, countless battles, and the chapter's significant investment in their gene seed and development. Exiling such a warrior risks losing an invaluable fighter and leader. Because of this, exile is only imposed for grave offences. Defiance of the Codex Astartes protocols, acts that jeopardise missions or civilians, or suspected heresy. Even when a Marine's actions are morally justified, if they contravene chapter law, exile may be unavoidable. The punishment carries both practical and symbolic weight. Practically, the chapter temporarily loses a skilled warrior and potential leader. Symbolically, it reinforces discipline and adherence to the Codex. It is a stark reminder to all Marines that heroism must serve the Emperor within the framework of the Ultramarines doctrine. In Titus's case, following the Graia campaign, exile was imposed despite his heroic actions saving millions. His defiance of strict Codex protocol forced his temporary removal from command, a test of his resilience, loyalty, and dedication. Yet exile did not equate to dishonour. Many exiled Marines returned stronger, wiser, and more resolute, as Titus would later prove when he returned as a Primaris Lieutenant, ready to face the Tyranid threat with renewed strength and authority. During his exile, Titus's talents and combat experience did not go unnoticed. While removed from command in the Ultramarines, he was offered a place within the Deathwatch, which serves as the chamber militant of the Xeno-hunting Ordo Xeno branch of the Imperial Inquisition. The Deathwatch is composed of the finest Space Marines drawn from various chapters, each seconded to watch, to combat the alien threat across the galaxy. Its operatives are tasked with facing the most dangerous Xeno species, from Tyranids to Orcs, Eldar, and beyond, in missions that require unparalleled skill, discipline, and adaptability. For Titus, joining the Deathwatch served multiple purposes. It allowed him to continue serving the Emperor in a capacity where his tactical brilliance and combat prowess were invaluable, even while his exile limited his command within the Ultramarines. It also provided a crucible for testing his loyalty, judgment, and ability to act independently of Codex constraints, all without endangering his chapter directly. During his time in the Deathwatch, Titus honed his skills further, learning new strategies against alien threats, commanding mixed squads of Marines from different chapters, and gaining experience in covert operations and boarding actions aboard enemy vessels. This period of service not only kept him active in the Emperor's War, but also prepared him for the galactic-scale conflicts he would later face, particularly against the Tyranid incursions of Space Marine 2. It's worth noting that while Titus's full service in the Deathwatch is not explicitly explored within the games, we find him at the beginning of Space Marine 2 already a member of the Deathwatch, engaged in defending Imperial worlds against Tyranid hordes. From this, it is safe to assume that his other duties within the Deathwatch were fully compliant with Deathwatch protocols and doctrine. The missions he undertook would have adhered to the Chamber Militant's focus on Xeno eradication, precision strikes, and coordination with Marines from multiple chapters. While specific boarding actions or synapse-targeted engagements are not shown directly in the game, it is a reasonable inference, given how the Deathwatch operates, that he would have participated in such operations. These types of missions are central to Deathwatch doctrine, and Titus's experience and rank make it highly plausible that he undertook them during his exile. Again, while this is not specifically depicted in the games beyond a mere snippet at the beginning of Space Marine 2, it is a very plausible and lore-consistent scenario given the structure and practices of the Deathwatch. Just keep that in mind. While serving in the Deathwatch, Titus's skills and unwavering loyalty were closely observed by both his chapter and the Inquisition. His proven ability to lead strike teams, adapt to alien tactics, and operate independently made him an ideal candidate for Primaris augmentation, a program designed to create superior Space Marines capable of facing the Imperium's deadliest threats. The circumstances leading to his transformation were twofold. Firstly, the Imperium was facing a growing Tyranid threat in multiple sectors, including the regions Titus was deployed to. The Deathwatch, tasked with combating Xeno incursions, recognised that augmenting seasoned battle brothers would provide a decisive advantage against these overwhelming enemies. Second, as an exiled Ultramarine, Titus's return to full chapter service required a path that honoured his past valour while integrating him into the new generation of Astartes, aligning with Guilliman's vision of a strengthened, Primaris-ready Ultramarines chapter. Thus, after consultations between the Ultramarines, the Deathwatch, and the representatives of the Mechanicus overseeing the Primaris program, Titus was selected for augmentation. He underwent the extensive Primaris process, surgical enhancements, gene seed refinement, and physical conditioning, transforming him into a fully fledged Primaris Marine. This transformation did more than restore him to full effectiveness. It allowed Titus to serve as a bridge between the original Astartes and the new Primaris Marines. His experience as a traditional battle brother meant he could mentor young Primaris Marines in tactics, discipline, and Ultramarine doctrine, while his enhanced capabilities demonstrated the full potential of the Primaris program. In this way, Titus became a living link between the old and new generations, helping the chapter integrate Primaris Marines without losing the traditions and cohesion of the Ultramarines chapter. So as years followed in shadow, some speculate that Titus underwent inquisitional trials, others claim that he undertook secret missions. When he returned, as stated, he was a Primaris Lieutenant, part of the Ultramarines restructuring. Though still a lieutenant, Titus commanded respect through deeds, not rank. Guardsmen and Marines alike recognised his courage and leadership. The galaxy now faced the Tyranid threat, testing every skill and every ounce of his indomitable will. Now we come to the events of Space Marine 2 and the Tyranid War. Titus's reintroduction to combat came on Grimaldus Prime, a hive world on the edge of annihilation. Tyranid gaunts overwhelmed defences, civilians were trapped, and guard regiments faltered. Titus led a small Primaris squad, Gadrael, Charion, and others, establishing choke points in the city. Simultaneous evacuation and combat required precision. Bolter fire tore through swarms, flamers cleared alleys, explosive traps slowed monsters. Titus's tactical genius was evident. He balanced lives saved with the destruction of enemy forces. At this point in his life, Titus finds himself at the forefront of urban warfare against the Tyranid menace, a challenge that tests both his tactical genius and the might of the Primaris enhanced body. The cities and the hives where these battles occur are densely populated industrial and civic centres where every street, alleyway and building can become a killing ground. As we've mentioned, the first major engagement takes place on Grimaldus Prime, where the Tyranids have landed in overwhelming numbers. As I mentioned, the Imperium deploys Titus and his squad to defend key population sectors and manufactorums, protecting critical infrastructure from being consumed or destroyed. The combat here is brutal and claustrophobic. Bolter fire echoes through shattered streets, plasma torches flare as Tyranids rip through barricades, and every building becomes a potential ambush point. Tactical positioning is critical, deploying squads to choke points, setting up fortified firing positions on rooftops, and sealing streets with demolitions to channel Tyranids into killing zones. Next, the fight moves on to the lower hive of Viridian, a sprawling undercity filled with narrow corridors, collapse structured, and toxic industrial runoff. Here, close quarters combat dominates. The Tyranids exploit the tight urban environment to swarm the defenders, while Titus uses his Primaris enhanced strength and speed to clear streets, breach fortified alleys, and coordinate ambushes with his squad. His experience in the Deathwatch proves vital, as he anticipates Tyranid synapse creatures, directing swarms, allowing him to target and neutralise them before entire blocks are overrun. The campaign continues to Vorthrain, an industrial hive world where the Tyranids focus on consuming vital factories. Titus leads rapid counter-assaults, boarding partially destroyed manufactorums to eliminate infestations at the source, smoke Fire and chemical hazards make every moment dangerous. Each squad must move in tight coordination, with Titus personally taking point in some breaches to inspire his brothers and maintain morale under relentless alien pressure. Finally, the battle culminates in Aurelia Secundus, a fortified Imperial city facing simultaneous orbit and ground assaults. Here, Titus is deployed to critical defence points, power generators, maglev transport hubs and key defensive walls. The Tyranids' overwhelming numbers push the squad to the brink, forcing Titus to make split-second tactical decisions: where to allocate his bolter squads, where to call for close combat intervention, and how to prioritise civilian evacuation versus tactical objectives. The streets are littered with the fallen, Tyranid biomass and debris, painting a grim picture of the horrors of urban warfare in the 41st millennium. Throughout these campaigns, Titus's leadership exemplifies the Codex-compliant Ultramarine approach. Disciplined, calculated, and focused on both mission objectives and minimising unnecessary loss of Imperial lives. His deployment to these urban centres is no accident. They are the industrial and population hubs the Tyranid target to cripple Imperial production and morale. The Primaris enhancements gives him the strength to operate at the forefront, clearing streets and leading squads while sustaining prolonged engagements that would overwhelm normal Marines. Urban warfare in this context is a brutal chess match of firepower, terrain and strategy, where every building, street and alley must be considered in defence planning, and where Titus's experience both from Graia and the Deathwatch allows him to adapt and survive against a relentless and cunning enemy. Now, I just want to pause and state that I can't help but notice how Titus's urban warfare campaigns feel strikingly familiar to the kind of decision making that you experience while playing tabletop Warhammer 40,000. Watching him manoeuvre through Grimaldus Prime, Viridian, Vorthrain and Aurelia Secundus, I see every movement, every squad deployment and every tactical choice reflecting the kind of careful planning that tabletop players have to take. It's fascinating that each city block, alleyway and rooftop becomes a miniature battlefield, and Titus's decisions about positioning squads, holding choke points or focusing fire on key Tyranid synapse creatures feel like watching somebody thoughtfully place units on a 40k tabletop. I can't help but notice how he balances objectives and resources just as a player would, deciding when to split his squads, when to hold and when to advance, all while trying to minimise casualties and protect vital infrastructure. I also can't help but notice the way different squads are used, bolter squads covering mid-range, assault squads clearing tight corridors, and heavy support deployed to control open streets. It's almost exactly like allocating units in tabletop 40k according to their strengths, and seeing the effect play out in real time adds this incredible, almost cinematic weight to the decisions. And Titus himself, with his Primaris enhancements, feels like a high-value character model on the tabletop. I can't help but notice how his presence shifts the battlefields, opens tactical options and influences enemy behaviour, just like a well-placed commander unit can change the flow of a game. Ultimately, I just can't help but notice that watching Titus in action is almost like seeing a tabletop game come to life. Every choice matters, every moment has consequence, and the balance of offence, defence and resource management is as intense as any battle that you'd play across a 6x4 tabletop in the 41st millennium. Anyway, I digress, but I just wanted to share that passing observation. It's something that I can't help but notice as I watch Titus in these campaigns. It's not the main focus of the story, of course, but it's fascinating to see how his tactical decisions, squad deployments and battlefield manoeuvres almost mirror the kind of planning and strategy you experience in tabletop. I just thought it were worth mentioning, a small insight for anyone who enjoys seeing the parallels between the lore, the game and the miniature battlefield. Anyway, back to it. I want to expand on the final confrontation on Aurelia Secundus. It's a brutal testament to the scale and intensity of the Tyranid threat, and to Titus's leadership as a Primaris lieutenant. Aurelia Secundus is a fortified imperial city, a hub of industry and civilian life, now turned into a battlefield strewn with debris, collapsed buildings, and fires raging across the skyline. The Tyranids are relentless, their hordes pouring into the city like a tide, overwhelming imperial defences and threatening to consume everything. Titus is deployed to key strategic points, power generators, maglev transport hubs and fortified barricades to hold the line while imperial reinforcements organise. From the outset, the battle is chaotic. Tyranid Hormagaunts and Gene Stealers swarm narrow alleyways. Lictors stalk from the shadows, and monstrous creatures like Carnifexes smash through walls, reducing entire city blocks to rubble. Titus must make split-second tactical decisions. He positions bolter squads on rooftops to deliver suppressive fire, directs assault squads through rubble-strewn streets to eliminate synapse creatures, and personally leads counterattacks against Tyranid incursions to prevent breaches of critical infrastructure. Each street, building, and alley becomes a miniature theatre of war, with Titus constantly assessing the battlefield and reallocating forces where they are most needed. One of the most dramatic moments occurs when a Tyranid Hierophant, a massive creature capable of rallying nearby organisms, emerges from the industrial quarter. Recognising the threat, Titus orchestrates a coordinated strike. Bolters and heavy weapons lay down suppressive fire, while assault squads flank the beast, drawing it into a kill zone where flamers and plasma weapons finally bring it down. This decisive action prevents the Tyranids from cutting the city in two, saving both Imperial forces and civilian lives. The battle's conclusion is just as tense. As the last Tyranid waves are repelled, Titus surveys the devastation. Streets littered with fallen Marines and Tyranids alike. Fires still smouldering, and manufactorums partially destroyed but intact. His leadership and strategic decisions have turned the tide in the Imperium's favour, demonstrating not only the raw power of a Primaris lieutenant, but the disciplined, codex-compliant strategy of an Ultramarine commander. In this campaign, Aurelia Secundus becomes a testament to both the horrors of urban warfare in the 41st millennium and the capacity for skill, courage, and leadership to overcome overwhelming odds. Titus's actions here are the culmination of his experiences on Graia, in the Deathwatch, and through the Primaris augmentation process, proving him a warrior worthy of legend. Now, I just want to remind everyone here at this segment here that there is always an ever-present threat from chaos, especially where the Imperium's concerned in the 41st millennium. It's important to remember that from the outset that the power of chaos is ever present and insidious, always watching, scheming and seeking to exploit weakness. Space Marine 2 reinforces this reality, even as Titus faces the overwhelming Tyranid threat on Aurelia Secundus. Forces of chaos are never far behind, ready to manipulate, corrupt, and strike when least expected. This ever-present danger is embodied by the Thousand Sons, who serve the Chaos God Tzeentch, the Changer of Ways, and operate in a realm where the laws of reality themselves are twisted. As Titus and his squad are thrust into the twisted, reality-bending domain of Tzeentch, the Thousand Sons are not merely opponents on the battlefield. They are manifestations of chaos sorcery, combining Ruberic Marines, Zangors, and powerful sorcerers to challenge both the physical and psychic resilience of Imperial forces. Ruberic Marines march in perfect, unyielding formations, the soulless presence a chilling testament to the consequences of the Ruberic of Ahriman, while Zangors lurk in the shadows, ready to ambush and overwhelm the unprepared. The sorcerers, leaders of these forces, manipulate the battlefield itself, raising barriers of warped reality, summoning firestorms and bending matter to their will, forcing Titus to adapt his Codex-compliant tactics to an environment unlike any he has faced before. Key characters among the Thousand Sons include powerful sorcerers who serve as both strategic commanders and personal adversaries to Titus. These individuals are embodiments of Tzeentch's cunning, capable of both brute force and subtle manipulation. One sorcerer may open rifts in reality to allow waves of Zangors to strike from the unexpected directions, while others focus on psychic assaults, testing Titus's resilience and the cohesion of his squad. Their presence emphasises the Thousand Sons' dual threat. They are formidable warriors and master tacticians, reflecting the Legion's lore as a cerebral, highly disciplined force, corrupted by chaos but retaining its original martial genius. Against such foes, even the discipline of the Ultramarines is stretched to its limits. Yet Titus is not alone. Standing at his side is Marnius Calgar, chapter master of the Ultramarines, a figure of immense renown and authority. Calgar's presence is more than symbolic, it is tactical, grounding the battle in the firm hand of Ultramarine command. Together, Titus and Calgar must navigate this ever-shifting theatre of war, where traditional strategies are tested against enemies who fight not only with bolter and blade, but with the raw stuff of sorcery and deception itself. It is in these moments that Titus demonstrates his ability to adapt, to bridge the disciplined wisdom of the Codex Astartes with the improvisation required to confront chaos in its most insidious form. The Thousand Sons' role in the campaign is not incidental. Their very presence reminds us that chaos is not a foe that simply charges the gates. It's a parasite, a manipulator, an ever-present shadow that seeks to undermine even as Xeno's threats rage unchecked. Their intervention shows us that even in the midst of the Tyranid onslaught, the long war continues. Tzeentch's chosen are here to exploit distraction, to destabilise Imperial defence, and to corrupt where they can. The machinations raise the stakes of Aurelius Secundus' campaign, turning what might have been a brutal war of survival into a theatre of existential trial, where the Imperium is assailed, both from without and within. This is why the Thousand Sons matter in the Space Marine 2 story. They're not just another enemy faction to be shot down and overcome, they are the ever-watchful hand of chaos itself, reminding us that the Imperium's foes are countless, that their methods are insidious, and that their determination to bring ruin never wavers. The presence highlights the dual nature of the threats the Imperium faces. Physical, like the Tyranids, and psychic or metaphysical, like the Thousand Sons. And it forces Titus in the wider narrative to rise to the challenge as a Primaris warrior. In doing so, the Thousand Sons provide a narrative foil to the disciplined Ultramarines. They test Titus's Codex-compliant strategies, push him to innovate and emphasise the need for vigilance and strategic thought at every moment. By the conclusion of these encounters, it becomes evident that the Thousand Sons are not just enemies to defeat, but symbolic and strategic instruments of chaos, showing how the Imperium must contend with foes that threaten both worlds and reality itself. Titus's confrontations with them alongside Marnius Calgar showcase his evolution and the true scale of the Imperium's battle. The galaxy is not only filled with ravenous Xenos, but also with cunning, manipulative forces that can strike when least expected, reminding us that the war against chaos and the war for Titus is never-ending, patient, and inescapable. Now, if I may, I'd like to take a moment to reflect on the full journey of Lieutenant Demetrian Titus, a warrior forged on Graia, tempered by the fires of battle, and elevated to the status of a Primaris Marine. Titus is more than a mere soldier, he's an embodiment of the Imperium's ideals, its discipline, its resolve, and yet he is also human in ways that the most disciplined of us might not immediately see. From his earliest days as a scout marine, Titus faced the crushing weight of expectation. To be a scout is to walk the path of near solitude, of constant observation and judgment. Each mission, each test, each moment of hesitation carries consequence far beyond yourself. And yet, in this crucible, Titus proved not just his skills, but his character. It is here, I think, that the first seeds of the man we come to admire are shown. A warrior who understands that discipline is not mere obedience, but a path to clarity in the chaos of war. Exile, for any Space Marine, is a heavy burden. For Titus, this exile, while necessary, while strategic, was a profound test of identity. To be separated from one's chapter, to be placed among strangers in the Deathwatch, is not punishment, but it is no small trial either. In this crucible, Titus honed a new set of skills, confronting alien horrors with a focus and a resolve that could have broken lesser men. And it is here, among the elite hunters of the Xenos, that his path intersected with the larger galaxy's threats in ways few can imagine. It was during this period Titus became a Primaris Marine, and here is where I pause to reflect. The transformation is not just physical, it is symbolic. It's the bridge between generations, a union of tradition and innovation. Titus carries the weight of the Ultramarines' Codex-compliant discipline while stepping into the future of the Adeptus Astartes. He is both familiar and new, a living testament to the Imperium's ability to evolve without abandoning its core principles. Then came the Tyranid invasions, the devouring storm of Aurelius Secundus. In these battles, Titus's skill, leadership, and courage were tested to the limit. Urban warfare is brutal. Buildings became death traps, streets became rivers of blood and alien ichor. Each engagement demanded split-second decisions, careful coordination, and a clarity of mind that can only come from experience and unwavering loyalty to the Emperor. Watching him lead his squad, adapt to every threat, and endure the chaos of these great campaigns, I can't help but admire not only his martial prowess, but the philosophical weight of his actions. Titus does not fight for glory, nor personal gain. He fights because the galaxy demands it, because the Imperium relies upon those willing to stand where others would falter. And then there's the confrontation with the Thousand Sons and the manipulations of Tzeentch. Here, Titus faces an enemy that warps reality itself. That challenges not only his combat skills, but the very limits of human understanding. Rubric Marines, Zangors, Sorcerous Distortions, every step forward requires judgment, courage, and adaptation. And yet, Titus persists. Alongside Calgar, he navigates this fractured battlefield, demonstrating the essence of the Ultramarines doctrine. The order and strategy, tempered with loyalty and courage, can confront even the most insidious of Chaos's machinations. What I find most compelling about Titus is not simply his victories, nor even his resilience, it's his constant adherence to principle amidst the endless tide of conflict. He embodies the balance between action and thought, discipline and innovation, loyalty and personal judgment. He's a figure who reminds us that even in a universe defined by war, there is room for reflection, for philosophy, for understanding. The galaxy may be unforgiving, chaos may be ever-present, and Xenos may swarm in unending waves, but there is, in Titus, a model of measured, deliberate, and purposeful action. A reminder that even in darkness, one can stand resolute. And so, when I watch his story unfold, from Graia through exile, Deathwatch, Primaris transformation, Tyranid onslaughts, and the manipulations of Tzeentch, I'm struck not only by his heroism, but by the weight of the universe that he actually inhabits, a universe where each choice matters, where vigilance is eternal, and where courage is tested at every moment. Titus is, in every sense, a lens through which we can understand what it means to be a Space Marine. Disciplined, unyielding, and ever watchful, yet capable of reflection, growth, and profound leadership. And with that, we reach the conclusion of our journey through the life and trials of Lieutenant Demetrian Titus. Space Marine and Space Marine 2 offer us a glimpse into the depth of his character, the scale of his challenges, and the unwavering dedication required to survive, adapt, and triumph in the 41st millennium. Again, much of what we see in the games are mere snippets, but entirely plausible and consistent within the established lore. We sincerely appreciate the support of all our followers and viewers, and if you enjoy our videos, please hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with our content. It's free and it lets us know that you enjoy our work while keeping you informed about future deep dives. As always, I have been your gracious host, Adeptus Autorum, and I thank you for watching.